Hello, and welcome to your very own Tech and More. Hope you guys are doing awesome. So, folks, this is a new playlist, and in this playlist, as you can see, we have figured out the automation testing interview questions and answers. And this will be sort of a one-stop destination for you to prepare for your Selenium WebDriver interviews. Cool. This is the first video, and similar to the Salesforce testing interview questions playlist, we're going to talk about the questions and answers practically. Plus, we have bifurcated all the topics into different categories. In the first video, we're going to start with scenario-based questions. That is, I see a trend that a lot of people have a very good amount of information when it comes to technical aspect, but when it comes to generic aspect, right, the generic automation knowledge, that is, I've seen some people fumble there, right? So the intent is that you should be able to answer some of these questions or the scenario-based questions as well, right? Without wasting any more time, let's start. So the first question will be, when will you avoid automation testing? The answer is, though test automation has its own advantages, it's not a good idea to automate all of your testing. Yes, this is very important. As opposed to the common opinion that, okay, automation is going to replace each and everything. It's not true. Trust me, this comes from an experienced person who has been working in the industry, delivered multiple projects. There are some scenarios when a human tester can do a much, much better job of testing the software than an automated test suite, right? What are these pointers? Let's go and have a look at them. The first pointer is, the software or the feature under the test changes frequently. This means you have to update your automated tests often to keep them up to date. Tests can quickly become obsolete and stop providing any value, right? So when there are a lot of changes involved, it's not a good idea to automate those things because it is going to take you more time to automate these functionalities. And one thumb rule is, as much as you're passionate about automation, if your automation is not saving time as compared to functional testing, it's of no use, right? Then the second pointer is, automation testing is also not suitable for exploratory testing. What is exploratory testing? If you want to know, I have another video created on exploratory testing. I'll share the link. But yes, very quickly, it's sort of a testing wherein you do not have test cases or documentation with you. You just have the function or the system in front of you, and you start going testing it, right? So, of course, automation testing will not be very good for that because you always have to have some scripts in automation testing. Then the third pointer is, unless the automated tests are programmed or configured to look for UI issues, they cannot find any problems with the UI. So, until and unless you do not have some other third-party tools integrated, you will find it difficult to find UI-related bugs. So, it's very, very critical that when it comes to UI, or if I say, the sort of the dimension of the box or dimension of the image, color of the image, all these things is better tested when with, with a human touch. So I'm sure that by now you have understood that everything cannot be automated. And quite honestly, till date, 50 to 60% of the testing is being done functionally, even in big organizations, right? Because of the time problems. Because end of the day, if you are going to take more time in automating a functionality due to its complexity, it's better to test it manually, right? So manual testing is not going to go anywhere. And when you give your interviews, always make sure that you give a hint to the other person that, you know what, I understand that automation testing is very critical, but right now the era is of hybrid testers. That is, I should be able to manually test things as well, plus automation. Good. Always give this reflection because see, your maturity is when you realize that it's always a combination of both manual and automation. Cool. Okay. Then the next question is, how do you choose a tool framework? How do you choose a tool slash framework for automation testing? So there are some pointers that you have to keep in mind while choosing a tool or a framework for automation testing. These pointers are, number one, understand project requirements. Okay, so you have to first understand that what project actually entails, how long it is, what are the features, what system is being used. Then secondly, you think about the programmatic or non-programmatic tools. That is, it's not that you only have Selenium WebDriver in the market, right? You have a lot of other tools. For example, you have Rover, you have Testim, you have CQA. All these different tools are available in the market. So you have to make a decision whether you want to use a program-oriented automation tool or you want to use a non-programming oriented automation tool, right? It all, and how do you decide? Depends upon the client requirements, depends upon your team's competency as well. If your team is not well versed with how to use programs or code, then of course you have to go with non-programmable. So that is another parameter of choosing an automation tool. The third one is commercial versus open source. That is, commercial is wherein you have paid licenses and you have to pay for it, right? Whereas in open source, it's all free of cost. It comes with its own challenges. In commercial, when you're paying something, you always have some point of contact to discuss your issues with, right? But when it comes to open source, it is majorly in a situation wherein the client says that we are not ready to pay and you use open source, but then you're on your own, right? So that is one of the parameter. The fourth one is ease of use. That is how easy it is to use. And honestly, when you understand the project, when you understand the client's budget, when you understand your team's competency, you will figure out how easy it is to use, right? And of course, performance. This goes along with point number four. That is both ease of use and assess performance. These parameters can be considered only after looking at the first three parameters, right? So they are all correlated to each other. So if you get asked this question that how do you choose a tool or a framework for your automation testing in the project, you have the answer now. Cool. So now let me go to the next slide or the next question. The question is, what is the relevance of test automation pyramid? This is very important, guys, because I have seen that test automation pyramid, a lot of people fail to answer this, right? So, all in all, Martin Fowler created the test automation pyramid, which was introduced back in 2012. Uh, do not focus on the theory, just focus on the, this graphic here. Cool. So let me take you to this graphic here. See this one. So basically, it says that first of all, the maximum number of test cases that you automate should be unit test cases in nature, right? Then secondly, the maximum number of test cases, or rather, not maximum. Let's go back. So the maximum number of test cases that should be automated is UI test cases. Then number two is service, right? The integration test cases, and the number three is the UI test cases, right? So if you see the pyramid, it says more the integration, lesser should be the automation, right? So that is when you are designing your test suite, you have to keep this in mind. And why this concept of test automation pyramid came into picture? Yes, there might have been some challenges, so it was required to categorize on how much you should automate which type of test case, right? So always keep this in mind, and you will get asked this question. There are high probability, so if you know this, it will be a very good thing for you. Cool. So that is this question. Now let me take you to the, oh, I have put myself here. Now let me take myself here back. Finally. Cool. So the next question is, what are the advantages of Selenium WebDriver? This is important, guys, because we speak so much about Selenium WebDriver. It is one of the most frequently used automation tools in the market. So of course we use it. But why do we use it? The advantages are, number one, it's an open source tool. That is, it is free of cost for you to use, and of course it comes with its own challenges. But if there is a requirement wherein they are not ready to pay anything for the license, it's a very good option. Then number two, cross-browser testing. So basically, it allows you to run your applications on Chrome, on Safari, and on Firefox, or any other browsers as well, right? So that's a very, very good leniency that Selenium gives you. Then third one is cross-platform. So you will not find any difficulty in running your test cases using Selenium WebDriver on Windows or on Mac or on Linux. My bad, the spelling is wrong, but yes, or on Linux, right? Then fourth is language agnostic. That means that you have a numerous sort of options to choose from to pick up as a programming language for Selenium WebDriver. It can be Java, it can be C Hash, it can be Python, and so on, right? But yes, being very honest with you, maximum of the current test automation frameworks which are there in the market right now in Selenium WebDriver have been designed on Java. So I would always suggest you that if you're just starting out, please focus on Java, right? Cool. The next question is, if we have talked about the advantages, it's time to talk about the disadvantages, right? So the disadvantages of Selenium WebDriver is, number one, if there is programming involved, if there's code involved, there is a huge problem, which is learning curve. That is, when program comes into picture, when coding comes into picture, I've seen a lot of people fumble. So it's very, very critical that you understand this point, that learning curve is going to be high, right? The second pointer is there is no support for desktop or mobile. Selenium only supports web applications. That's it, right? And third one is no reliable tech support. This because sort of becomes disadvantage to an advantage. That is, it's an open source, so there's no not going to be any one point of contact for you, any official point of contact for you. Of course, when you Google your query, trust me, you will find so many resources which you may not be able to find even in the paid licenses, right? But yes, you will not have one person to talk to. Then fourth is complicated debugging. It's obvious whenever there is programming or code involved, it's not a drag and drop sort of a tool. So you will find it a little difficult to debug wherever your code breaks or wherever there's a problem, right? So these are some disadvantages of Selenium WebDriver. The next question is, how does the Selenium WebDriver interacts with the browser? I've seen a lot of people answer this, that you have the Selenium client library here, right? You have this here, and then it directly talks with the browser. No, it's not that. There is a layer in between that is browser driver. So if you have learned Selenium WebDriver, and I'm sure you have learned it because if you're coming for the interview questions, you have some knowledge about it. And FYI, if you want to learn Selenium WebDriver or rather Salesforce test automation, I have a playlist for that as well. We take you right from the beginner level up to a point wherein I would not say advanced. I always believe in honesty because we have sort of this vision wherein we bifurcate the courses into different pieces. So of course, one playlist cannot have beginner to advanced because it's huge, right? But yes, from beginner to intermediate, you can easily rely on this and you can start giving your interviews once you are done with the playlist, right? So I'm going to attach the link to that playlist as well. So yeah, coming back to the topic, uh, you have this Chrome driver, you have Firefox driver, then you have Gecko driver, right? So all these drivers are basically they contain all the actions, for example, click, send keys, all these things, which basically is a bridge between the Selenium client library and the browser, right? So when somebody asks you this question, you sort of help them picturize this diagram, right? And one tip, keep your answers as crisp as possible because when you do that, you give the interviewer more time to ask you questions, right? So I think these are some very critical scenario based questions. And of course, we will be talking about more technical questions in the coming videos. That is, the sort of different functions, features, methods in Selenium WebDriver. But this is very critical if you want to know about scenario based questions, right? So do take these seriously. I see a lot of people sort of taking these things a little lightly because, scenario based, we'll handle it. But it talks a lot about your maturity or your experience when you are giving interviews. If you're able to answer the practical questions well, these scenario based questions well, it shows that you have actually worked on the project rather than just learning theory, right? So please do this. And of course, if you want me to create a separate video on any questions of your choice, feel free to comment it to me. Yeah. So yeah, that's the first video of the series. And in the second and the upcoming videos, we'll be talking more from the technical interview questions on Selenium WebDriver. Cool. So yeah, that's all. And see you in the next video. Thank you and take care.